Hi everyone, I hope you've been well. I have had to take a bit of a break from miniature painting in the last few weeks, purely because I started a new job, which has taken the majority of my time, in between also planning the final parts of mine and my fiance's wedding, which is next month in September. So hobby time has been very limited for me at the moment. But what I have enjoyed in the few hours I've had each week is painting up some raptors. And I've been especially focusing on these kind of thematic bases around the Emperor's Angels kind of falling down and protecting these lines of Cadians. It's just been a fun little side project for me. It's been something I can just relax into. Instead of starting something new, which I tend to do pretty frequently, but I've really enjoyed it, and I thought today we'd just go over my new Raptor painting scheme, because a few things have changed since my previous video, and I'm also going to cover a bit about the bases as well. So I hope you really enjoy today. As I said, this was just a really fun project for me that I'm working on at the moment. So I've had plenty of time to get this model ready over the last couple of days, so I can put this video together. I hope you really enjoy it, and yeah, let's paint. So just to prepare this model, I kind of set up this dynamic pose where I wanted to see the Cadian kind of being protected by the Terminator on the battlefield. So I just took a Cadian that I basically had sitting to one side unpainted, that had been on my shelf for however many months, used him, stuck him on the base. These bases I won't go into too much detail about because there is a video on my channel already about how I put those together, which is more or less the same of what I've done here. All the little basing bits are from Deadly Print Studios and Epic Basing, so you can find those there. For the Terminator Power Fist, I actually used one of the Assault Terminator Power Fists, and I kind of just cut it off at the elbow and glued the new one on because I like this kind of open finger pose that it had going on. The holes in the armor were just done with a X-Acto knife and a Dremel, so nice and simple. And then I've just got this last result, so I just prime AK black over the plastic. I tend not to use primers anymore because I just prefer the cleaner application of the acrylic paint. I know some people say, well, it's got more risk of chipping off, but I've never had an issue after I varnished the model, so I just leave it at that. So they've all had a base coat of this AK black, including the head, which I've sub-assembled to do separately so I can focus on the face and the skin tones, which we'll cover later in the video. Okay, so starting with AK Blood Red, I'm going to give the model an all-over coat as the base, which is going to be our shadow tone, and it's going to contrast nicely with the green tones that we're going to put over the top. So you'll get this lovely kind of warm, rich, browny red in the shadows, which is what we want. So give this an all-over base coat until you've got a nice solid layer. Once we've got that nice opaque red, I'm then going to take US Dark Green, also from AK, and I'm going to start slowly layering this up over the whole model, being careful to leave some of that red still in the shadows, because I do want that kind of browny red to shine through ever so gently, just to add a little bit of interest and contrast. But I thin this quite heavily in the airbrush, probably 2 parts water and thinner to paint, and I've got my airbrush to about a 25 psi. So take your time with this step, because we're going to slowly get tighter and tighter now with our highlights. So we want to make sure that we get this first base color right. And as you can see, with that step complete, we've still got this kind of hint of this browny red in the shadows, but from the top it reads as this military green. Now the next highlight we're going to be using is a bit of a strange one. It's this one from AK, Graugrun, which I'm assuming is grey-green or something like that. Bit of a strange AK paint. I can't really remember where I got this one, but it's still this kind of lighter military kind of eggshell green. So I'm just going to be hitting that pretty much within the highlighted areas we just used. And I'm going to be filling this again quite heavily in the airbrush because I don't want to overdo this step. So aiming at the tops of the volumes now, just to bring in a pop of highlight. But we obviously want to make sure that this marine still stays a little bit dark, a little bit, I guess, military looking. We don't want to make it this kind of really bright, luminous green. So take your time with this. If you do apply a little bit too much, it's not the end of the world. When we use the oils later, it is going to knock back the color anyway. So it is a bit forgiving at this stage. But yeah, take your time, work your way around the model, just picking out any areas where you want to draw a little bit more attention, like the shoulder pads, the tops of the pauldrons, and especially this fist here that's going to be protecting that Cadian trooper. But yeah. And we now got this lovely kind of green result. Now, the next step is I've just taken some greenish white and mixed it into the previous highlight layer. And all I'm going to do is apply a few little dots of this to the utmost parts where I want a bit of a specular highlight and to bring a little bit more attention. But be very careful with this step because we don't want to overdo it. And on the camera, it does look quite bright. It's a little bit more matte, a little bit more dull in reality. So I think it's just the colors playing with the lens a little bit now, but you obviously still want to keep this quite desaturated. And I'd say that was enough. So we've applied that greenish white to that mix, and you should have something that looks like this now. But I thought I'd just show you a quick comparison to see how it does get knocked down in the end. So you can see there's a lot more definition now after the oils are applied, and also that bright kind of whitish green really kind of falls back to this lovely more military green again. So don't be too worried about overdoing that step. All we're going to do now is take some AK Black Red, thin pretty heavily in the airbrush, and I'm going to be now just reintroducing a little bit more shadow tone just back into the darker areas of the model, and that's going to help also blend that green back in with the kind of brighter red in the recesses. But I'm just aiming for kind of the insides of the pauldron, underneath the chest, crest there, just to introduce a bit more contrast, I guess, just back in, to help the green really start to pop on the model. So we don't want to overdo this step, of course, so take your time. But once you've done, you'll have this lovely contrasting darker red into this very light green towards the uppermost highlights. Now you can see with that done, you've got this really lovely kind of deeper, darker shade of red contrast against the brighter green, and we're starting to get much more the tones from this original model here. Now, next stage is I'm going to be using Jet Exhaust to block in all the metallics, giving this a really good shake because it does split. And I want this to be, not to have too many colors on it. So the Jet Exhaust is going to go on the bolter, across the crests, and also the fingers of the power fist, as well as the little vents on the back. So it's going to be quite a muted palette. I am using these golden maple Kolinsky sable brushes, and I have been for the last couple of weeks. They were kind enough to send me the whole range of them. They've been featured on Ninjon's channel. I wanted to give them a go myself, and yeah, they're really, really good. Some of the stuff from Golden Maple can be a bit hit and miss in my experience, but these brushes, for the price of them, are pretty phenomenal, and the tip on them is incredible. So I've been using predominantly this size 2, but if you are looking for an entry-level Kolinsky sable brush and you don't want to pay ridiculous prices, these brushes are phenomenal, and I can definitely vouch for them. So just going to take my time to block in all these areas now, and once that's done, we'll move on to the next stage. And with the jet exhaust applied, you should have something that looks like this. Now, just a quick word of warning for these metal color paints from Vallejo. They're incredibly thin and runny, so you have to give them a really good shake to make sure that the pigment isn't split in the bottle. But when you apply it, they do tend to run into all the recesses, which is really good if you're doing these vents at the back, but not so good when you're trying to do these details on the flatter parts of the plates themselves. So just do be careful. You can see the stud here just on the fist has gone over a bit. But as I always say, when we apply the oils, it's going to hide a lot of the evils. And I've just realized I need to do this little skull here on the wrist as well. So just going to finish doing that skull, and the next thing we're going to do is gloss varnish this model and apply decals. Now, for those that know me on the channel know that I absolutely love decals. I talk about them all the time. I think they're just such a great thing to get a model looking really interesting really quickly for not much effort. So I'm going to come back once those decals are applied. I'll apply another layer of the gloss varnish, and for the gloss varnish I'm just using Vallejo Ard Coat, very simple. And then we can move on to the next stage once the decal and gloss layer is dry. So I've now applied all the decals that I wanted to apply, and I've applied another coat of Ard Coat over the top just to seal them. And what that does, it makes the decals go kind of flush to the model as well, so you can't notice when decals have been put down. And as you can see, now that we've done that, we're starting to get a lot closer to this tone of the original model. So you can see that as we start to build up these layers of varnish, but also now with the oil coat, it starts to knock back those kind of really bright greenish white highlights. So all we're going to be using now is Magenta oil from Windsor and Newton. We've got Starship Filth from AK, and then we've got Burnt Umber from Abteilung 502, and I've just put it on the playing card. So I'm just going to take some mineral spirits and start mixing this on my little card palette until I get the desired oil wash. Now I'm using a little bit of magenta here because I do try and use magenta in most of the things I do. I just think it brings a nice kind of little tonal variation. It will go really well with the green and with the red, but I don't know if it makes any real difference when you add these other two colors, but I like to think that those subtle little kind of tonal variations in the background make a difference overall. So I'm just trying to kind of find this kind of dirty brown color that I like, and to the one side I've got a little pot of mineral spirits that I'm just dipping my brush into, so I can water this mixture down on this plastic playing card. So once I'm kind of happy with the color, I think that's good. I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but there is a little bit of kind of purpley magenta-y undertones to this, which I really like. So as I said, I like to think it's worthwhile doing, and I'm just going to tap this to the glossed model where I want some of this oil to run into, and as you can see, it just kind of flows into the recesses thanks to that gloss varnish that's already on there. So I'm just going to go round the model very carefully, just touching it to the areas where I want to build up of that kind of dirt and grime. Beauty about oils is if we make any mistakes, we can just clean it off. So don't worry too much about being super accurate. As you can see, I'm just going to coat this whole crest on the front here, and I'm going to come back and clean it up later. But yeah, go around the whole model, fill in all those little recesses, and then once we're done, we'll move on to the next stage. Okay, so I've applied the oils, and I've even done a little bit across the top of the pauldrons here, just to filter. It's not going to stay completely dyed and knocked back with the oil, but I just want to get some of that kind of brownish mix on the white there, just to dirty it up a little bit. But it's all pretty wet at the moment, so just make myself a coffee, and in the next 10 minutes it will take me to drink that. It should be ready for us to move on to our cleanup stage. So I've given this about 10 minutes drying time, and it's mostly dry now. So I'm just going to go with a little sponge dipped in mineral spirits, and I'm just going to slowly work my way around, just taking off some of that excess oil where I don't want to be such a big build-up. So off all the high raised points mainly, and anywhere where there's a little bit of staining, for example on the top here, a little bit too much than what I'm after. So I'm just gonna take it straight off and leave the oil in the deepest parts of the recess. And now we're moving on to the face, and I've just given this a very light airbrush of AK Blood Red, but as you can see it's very, very thin, just to give it a bit of depth. But the main colours we're going to be using for the skin is going to be deep brown, beige red, and then basic skin tone. So what I'm going to do first is apply an all-over coverage of the deep brown through the airbrush, and then the same from above with the beige red. We're then going to come in and start with our brushwork to really bring that face to life. So as I said, step one, we've got that deep brown through the airbrush, and I'm just going to give this an all-over coat of the deep brown until we've got a nice kind of semi-opaque finish, but I don't mind if a little bit of that blood red is still kind of coming through the layers there. So it's quite a thin mix that I've got in my airbrush here, and that looks like a good place to start. And then coming in with my beige red, and just from above a bit of a zenithal straight down onto the top of the face, just to introduce a bit of light and shadow across the face of the model. So you can see you've got this lovely still deep brown in the shadows, but then a nice layer of beige red from above. And this is going to be the foundation and the starting place for our skin tone. Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this on camera as best I can, but I'm now taking a little bit of black red mixed with Lahmian medium, and this is just going to be a bit of a wash. But I'm going to be quite controlled in the wash, so I'm just going to apply it really to the main part of the face, but also kind of glaze it down the side of the face into the recesses, just to keep the top part as free from this as possible. I'm also going to wick away any kind of real excess from the recesses so it doesn't sit and pool. I'm then just licking my brush really, and just going to give that top of the head a quick little blend and clean up, just to remove any tide marks. And what you can already see happening is you start to get this lovely definition across the model, and the Lahmian medium allows for a longer drying time, but it does dry matte, so it also helps kind of blend the skin layers together. So I'm just going to step away and let that dry for a moment, and then once that's dry I'll come back and show you how it looks, and we'll carry on with the rest of our skin recipe. Okay, and with that done, you can see we've got all this lovely definition now on the face, from this kind of pinkish white down to this nice reddy pinky recess shade. So really good foundation for faces. All I've got now on my wet palette is deep brown, beige red, and our basic skin tone. And I'm just mixing a little bit of the deep brown into the beige red. This is very, very thin, almost like a glaze consistency. And I am now going to use this just to start highlighting up the face. And you do want this quite thin so that it blends and dries nice and evenly. And I'm just going to cover the whole part of his kind of bald head there. If you do get any that kind of pulls, what I tend to do is just quickly lick my brush and then go back and just kind of feather it out towards the top of the model. So you can see on the side here where there's a little bit more red, I'm just pulling the pigment from the lower half of the head towards the top, just to build that nice smooth transition between the brightest point and the darkest. Now there's no way around this. If you want good looking faces, you have to take your time. So I'm just going back in after each layer is dry, and I'm just reapplying highlights in very thin layers, just where I think it looks best relative to the light on the model. And I'm just imagining that the light is coming down from the top. So on my white palette, I'm just steadily mixing more and more of the beige red into the deep brown, and then I'll be doing the same with the basic skin tone until I get a really good build-up of highlight colors where I want them. Okay, and all I've done here is black out the part of his helmet. I've focused the light onto the left side of the face just because he's going to be looking off to the left. Sorry, the right side of the face. So he's going to be looking off to the left, so I wanted this part to really catch the light. I'm just going to put a dot of chrome onto those little dots on his forehead, and I'm probably going to do a bit of chrome on the little earpieces as well. For the eyes, I'm just going to do a very small dot of an off-white. Any off-white is good. And then off camera, I'm going to dot the eyeballs, which is also always the the fun part. So I'll do that off camera and save you watching me try to do that several times. And then we'll be back once it's done. And with that, the head's complete. Now the eyes, they weren't on good enough, but maybe a little bit cross-eyed. But look, it's when you're looking at it from across the tabletop, you're not going to notice. And as I said, he's going to be looking off to the left, so you're only going to really see the right eyeball anyway. So I'm just going to pop this onto the miniature now, and then we can get started on the final piece, which is the base. Okay, with the head now on the miniature, I'm really happy with how this is looking so far. I mean, the camera quality doesn't quite do the face justice in my opinion, but I'm pretty happy with how this guy's head turned out. And those skin tones, something that I've been trying to get better at recently. I really tried my hardest with this guy. I even gave him a bit of stubble, and I was really happy with how that one came together. So I tried to use pretty much the same skin tone on the Terminator as well. But yeah, just trial and error. You know, you need to just keep going at these things. If you don't do it quite right the first time, it's just about trying again until you and you slowly start to learn little ways of doing things. So anyway, I'm going to pop this guy to one side for the moment. We are going to focus now on the base and this Cadian. So I've got a really quick speed paint way of painting up Cadian troopers. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the details of this guy at all. It's going to be very quick because obviously the Terminator is the focal point. Now there is a tutorial for these kind of like bases, rubble bases already on my channel, but just for this video, I'm just going to go over it again. So I use Afro Shadow, and this is my kind of brown base coat, and I'm just going to give everything, including the Cadian, a nice coat of the Afro Shadow from AK, and this is going to represent all that dirt, wet dirt, grime, mud that these guys are trudging through. So I'm going to make sure to hit all the recesses of the Cadian trooper as well, but give the whole base a good opaque covering. Okay, so we've got that lovely rich brown colour now, and I'm just going to hit the top of this with Basalt Grey from AK. So I'm aiming for all the kind of rubble structures, the concrete. I'm trying to keep a bit of variation across as well, so doesn't matter if you go over a bit of the ground that maybe isn't meant to be concrete, because when we put a wash over this, you're not really going to be able to tell. I'm going to hit the Cadian just from above to start building up a bit of a zenithal, because as I said, we're going to be applying some speed paint over this guy, so we can start that process now. So yeah, just going around until I feel like there's enough balance between the concrete and the earthy tones underneath. I'm then going to do one last highlight of sky grey, and this is just to add a bit of like interest just to some of the raised points. Again, like the armour, this will be knocked back a lot when we do the wash stage, so we don't have to worry if we over apply this. Now for the Cadian, I'm going to pretty much hit the whole model, because this is going to be the base of our speed paint. So trying my best not to get too much on the base itself, but making sure to get this Cadian covered as much as possible, still keeping that kind of browny colour in the recesses. I'm going to give the barbed wire and also the metal coming out of the beams here just a coat of Mithril. Again, very, very bright, but we'll knock it back with the wash in a moment. And this is just a one and done, so we shouldn't have to come back and re-highlight any of these up. Okay, so now the Cadian. So lots of people have asked me how I paint up my Cadians. I do exactly what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm using AK Dark Grey on all of the armor panels first. So just going around and making sure you've got a nice opaque coverage on every single armor panel, the shoulders, the chest, the helmet, and then we'll move on to the next stage. With that done for the fatigues, I'm going to take some Army Painter Speed Paint Warrior Skin, mix 50-50 with Lahmian Medium, and I'm just going to wash this all over the model in its entirety. Doesn't matter if you get any on the armor panels you've already done, we're just going to make sure this has a nice solid coat. With the fatigues done, I'm then going to take some pure Satchel Brown and I'm going to do all the leather elements like the backpack and straps. This is a lovely deep red brown, perfect for leathers. Okay, for the skin, so the hands and the face, I'm going to use Aged Hide, which is another speed paint. So I'm going to take this pure on the brush and block in all the skin areas with this color. So you want quite a opaque coverage of this because it does dry fairly transparent. I've got a bit of that on the gun casing there, so I'm just going to come back in a minute with some sky grey again and just clean it up before I coat the main casing of the weapon. And then just for the las rifle itself, I'm just taking pure Grim Black, just straight over the top. Just being careful not to get any on those fingers and hands that we've just done. Last thing on the armor, we're going to take some of that Grim Black and mix down with a little bit of Lahmian Medium, and we're going to wash it all over the armor panels just to build up a little bit more definition. So across the shoulders, letting it settle all nicely into the recesses, across the helmet, so we get nice shading around the bridge of the helmet as well as the back and across the little eagle on the front. But also into the chest area as well. Just to once again boost a bit of the contrast. Now Cadian's almost complete, but all I'm going to take now is a little bit of brown rose from AK, and I'm just going to highlight up some of his fingers just to bring a little bit of definition back after the wash stage. And I'm also going to do the same on his face, so across his cheeks, just to bring a bit more attention to the skin and make him feel a little bit more alive. I have also just added a bit of Mithril to some of the metal elements across his las casing and also to his helmet. Little buttons on those boots and backpack as well. So all I'm going to do now is give the whole base plus the Cadian Trooper a coat in gloss varnish. I'm going to apply some decals and then going to reseal with gloss again like I did with the Terminator, ready for the oil stage. Okay, and with the base glossed, the decals have been applied to the Trooper. We're now just going to give the whole base a wash of a mix of Starship Filth from AK and then Abteilung 502 burnt umber, just 50-50 with mineral spirits. So not using any of the magenta that I used before. I'm just going to wash this a little bit over the legs of the Cadian, but also just get it into the rest of the base. Applying this pretty liberally all over, not being too neat here. We're going to come back when it's dried a little bit, just with a clean sponge, just to wipe it away from any of the top surfaces. And while that oil's drying, I'm just going to go back in with a dry, clean sponge and just take it off the utmost layers, just leaving it nice and grimy in the recesses. Now I'm just going to add a pop of interest to his las gun, so I'm just going to do this little dial here in white. I'm then going to wash the white with Shamrock green. I'm just going to add a bit of pigment to the base, so I'm just using brown iron oxide. And I'm just going to add a little bit of interest, so just in and around some of these elements, just to bring a pop more colour and kind of some, like, you know, rust effects, I guess, where things have started to oxidize within this rubble. Just a little bit, don't want to do too much. A couple of last little details for the Terminator itself is I'm just going to add a little bit of Mithril to some of these holes on the armor, just to give a little bit more depth and look like they've freshly punched through metallic. So with that, the Terminator is almost complete, and I have added some specular highlights just to the metallics with the Mithril. I've also done a few edge highlights as well, but just some very broad ones, nothing too detailed, nothing too intricate. Pretty simple. So all I'm going to do now is just add a little bit of glow to the lenses at the top right there, and also to the vents on the back. And for this, I'm using dark Prussian blue through the airbrush. So I'm just going to give this a few tight little puffs. Just to establish that glow. And I'm also going to do the same on the back. Like so. For the vents on the back, I'm just going to follow that up with a little bit of a blue-green, just in the center of where I did the previous highlight. And I'm going to call it a day there. That's the vents done, nice and simple. And for the lenses themselves, I'm just going to do a couple of dots of this blue-green inside those little lens covers. Like so. And with the Terminator now based, this mini is complete, and I couldn't be happier with how it all turned out. I have had some recommendations to maybe do a little bit of heat bloom around the bullet holes, or to do some ricochet bullets and things. I might come back and add that later. But as I said at the beginning, I've not had a great deal of time to do new projects and work on miniature painting recently, so I just wanted to really enjoy this one, take my time with it, and just get it to a point where I was really happy with the results. And I love how this has turned out. I'm really happy with the skin. I've been really working on the on faces recently, and I think he looks great and menacing. And I did go back in and try and fix the eyes a bit so he doesn't look so cross-eyed anymore. But yeah, look, I hope you enjoyed this video today. Thank you so much for your support, both here and on Instagram. It means a great deal and makes it all worthwhile. I hope to have the other 4 Terminators completed soon as well, to add to this Raptor force that is growing bigger by the day. But I had a lot of fun painting up this miniature. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching to the end, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.